Okay, I think we're live. This is the Artist Spotlight with some authors and artists from our Elemental exhibit. Thank you for joining us. We have Catherine Stenzel and Zack Rowatt and Trey Everett and myself, and hopefully Alexandria Maxwell. We thought we would start with Catherine. If you want to introduce yourself, and then Zack can introduce himself too, and you can
Sure.
read a little bit, Catherine, and then we've got some questions. And feel free, this is a conversation.
So you want a poem or so, right? In this introductory part or later?
You can
Yeah,
do it in.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Freewheeling.
Now, I mean, we'll just kind of be, kind of free form. And I do want to say these artists are in our current exhibit, which is Elemental, Earth, Air, Fire, Water, and Space. And so this is an exhibit with the Northwest Minnesota Arts Council. It's currently at Northland Community and Technical College in Thief River Falls. And so this exhibit has been going on for about a month now, and it continues till toward the end of September. I think, let me check my notes. September 27th will be the last day that you can see the exhibit. And it's also online. And so you can do a virtual tour if you're not able to physically go to the exhibit. But yeah, so Catherine is one of our poets. So we had Zack is our visual artist for this exhibit, and we'll talk with him in a little bit. But then we also invited poets and writers and illustrators to contribute. And so Catherine contributed some beautiful poetry. And so we really wanted to highlight her. And so Catherine, we're going to turn it over to you, and just whatever you'd like to share right now. That's great.
Okay. Well, I better tell you a little bit more about myself. I live in Beltrami Island Forest, and that's south of Roseau and War Road. It's kind of an equilateral triangle between the two. And lived here for 22 years, going back to the beginning. I did get a master's in English, so I have that behind me as far as being a poet. And I taught high school English, including poetry, for 10 years. And then, there's a long story, but I retooled, got an MBA CPA, and spent 30 years in Fortune 500 companies. Now, that is something most poets don't do. It's a long story, as I said. In 2007, unfortunately, I became disabled, but that gave me a beautiful window to have my life full-time writing. So that's what I'm doing now. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm working on an epic poem, which is now about 200 pages, but it's not done yet. And it's called The One. And it kind of parallels the Odyssey. I'm not the first one that's done that. And anyway, that's one. Another one is, you guys might or might not know about the Winaskin Almanac. There's 6 of us that write. There's one person that writes 2 days. We write every day of the week. We've been doing it for almost 5 years. And everybody has a particular thing they do. There's one of us that's a humor guy, and another one that's a history guy. And every Monday, I have a post with one of my poems. So I write a poem a week, at least. And let's see, beyond that, by the way, if anyone's interested, I can give you the blog link to the Winaskin Almanac. And the biggest project I'm working on right now is a book. It's called My Grandfather's Sword. And I'm writing it with my martial arts teacher. And he is a lineage holder for his samurai family. He is a Buddhist priest, and he's a 7th degree black belt in Aikido. you can imagine he's a pretty interesting guy. So we're on the last revision with that. And just to wind up with the personal side, my husband, Joe, my beloved husband, Joe, and I live in this very small cabin, and we have 2 dogs, my service dog, Willa, German Shepherd, and my companion dog, Sancho, and we call, Sancho Panza from Don Quixote. We call him Sancho Pansy. And I guess that's about it for personal. Trey or Kristen, did you want to jump in with anything there, or shall I just go on?
Can I ask, with the poems that you do every week for the almanac, is it like, do you try and stick to a theme, or is it like just something happens to you during the week, or you know what you want to write about for next week? How do you choose what you write about and what?
Oh, thanks for asking, Zach. That's a great question. And it's one of the questions I think that we had decided on. One of them was, what's my process, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this will answer the question. Poems land in my lap in a chunk. Not all of the writing, but it'll be a title or a phrase or an image. And then I take it from there. And they're coming to me all the time. And of course, 90% of them never really go anywhere. But that's how it happens. And no theme. So, no particular. Although some of my fellow writers for the Winaskin Almanac call me the dark poet, because I tend to write fun poems too, but I tend to look on the dark side. And that's another story, which I might get to. Does that answer your question, Zach? Okay. Yeah. Anything else from Trey or Kristen?
Yeah. So, Catherine, can you go ahead and give us the Winaskin Almanac blog? Because part of our idea is to promote you and Zach and Alexandria and all of your work. And so we just want to make sure people have a way to access any of your creativity and your work.
I don't have it offhand because I never use it.
Okay.
I just have a direct link to it. Okay. I can look it up while somebody else is talking.
Sure.
So maybe we'll do that.
We can get that later, and we can put it on, put it with this, I think, Kristen, right? We can somehow.
Yeah, I can try to do that. And, I subscribe to it too, so I can see if I
that would be great.
Every day I can that includes.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Catherine, tell us just a little bit about, so if no one has read, let's say no one knows anything about you or your poetry, tell us a little bit about what's your style, what kind of poetry do you write? Just give us a little sense of that, some kind of description.
Sure. I've already told you a little about my process, which isn't much of a process because I just get those nice chunks. I write mostly in blank verse with heroic couplets. Blank verse is not necessarily rhymed, but I use rhyming a lot. And heroic couplets are just 2 lines that rhyme. Can't remember why they call them heroic. I should know that. Anyway, that's my main style. But I have written, I like to write every once in a while something in a technical form. They're never very good because I'm not much of a technical writer as far as poetry goes. But I do stick a toe in once in a while and write in a form like, say, a sonnet. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Want to go anywhere in particular with this question? I can just keep talking too.
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. as far as the process, again, it's a physical experience as well as emotional when I am mulling over a poem or when I'm actually writing it. It's one of those things, they say you really love something when you lose track of time and you don't care what else you might be doing or could do. That's my experience. Here, this is an idea, I think, rather than just talk process. I have loved words from the beginning. And what I mean by that is I would always, when the Sunday paper came in, I would drag my dad out to get it. And then I would make him sit down and read me Prince Valiant and Beetle Bailey and some of those cartoons that anybody younger than me probably has never heard of. And I really wanted to learn to read those words myself. So what happens? I go to first grade in a Catholic elementary school. Sister Ernest, my first grade teacher. And the first thing she did was take a piece of construction paper, and on it she had written in big letters, G-O-D. And she had a little rays of sunshine coming out of it. And that was the most amazing moment. That's when I started to be a writer, because it was like, finally, a word, and I can read it. And, sort of it went from there. Let's see, what else can I tell you about that? Well, I guess to kind of wrap that part up, every word for me is a thrill. I enjoy everything about writing, whether it's poetry or not. And I write poetry always by hand first. I word process it later, of course, but I love the feel of the pen in my hand and the sound of the pen on the paper and the smell that eventually comes up from the ink and the paper. A little subtle, but I like it. So there's just nothing about the art of writing that I don't like. I do. Zach, you're kitty. Now you have a tail coming out of your head.
He hears people that aren't in the room, so he's like, "Where is that coming from?"
Yeah, if my dogs were in here, they would do the same thing, only they'd bark.
Yeah, Catherine, when you're talking, it sounds like for you, poetry and, words, it's not just a mental process, but you're talking also about the feel of, you talked about all these physical sensations, the movement of the pen in your hand, the smell of the ink, the sound as it touches the paper. So this is also this sort of embodiment.
Exactly.
A creativity.
Yeah. It's a whole body, whole mind, body, mind, spirit.
So can you say more about that? How does connecting the body and the mind and the spirit together for this creative process, can you just say something else about that, or what
Sure.
that's like?
Well, as we can all appreciate, we can't separate those three. And so it takes a physical and mental effort to separate them. So I think about them and feel and experience them as a whole. So the mind, I don't like the mind to lead. I'm kind of a right brain person. Actually, I'm both. But when we're talking about poetry, I'm a right brain person, which is not too surprising. And I like to lead with my body. I walk my dogs a lot. And that's an activity where I get some of those chunks coming down. And when I'm working on a poem, I'll often go for a walk with the dogs, take my notebook, and just feel the forest around me and just let things come out of the source, the void. I know that might sound a little woo-woo, but well, let's see. What else can I say about that? I think that's all I want to say about it right now.
Okay. Yeah. So when can you remember when you first started writing poetry? Do you remember your first poem, or how old were you?
The one I remember for sure, I was in about 4th grade, and it was about a rainstorm, a thunderstorm. And I can't even remember the title, but I remember I was sitting outside in the rain writing the poem. And it was very childish, of course, but I was so proud of it. And I came in and read it to my parents, and they gave me little pats on the shoulder and encouragement. And that kind of went away when it was time to go to college and earn a living. You got to do something. So I did the teaching thing and, the rest of the story. But I've never stopped being a writer or a poet. And I really have enjoyed the times when I have been able to, like the 10 years teaching high school, and being able to watch the love for writing touch certain people. I created 2 poets when I was teaching high school. I'm in touch with one, and the other one disappeared into Europe somewhere. But they just fell in love like I did with poetry, and they never looked back. They are making their living from writing poetry. Now that's a feat.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you have, I keep thinking about your process. Do you have particular times you feel more creative or are more creative, different seasons of the year or times of the day, or different, emotional states you're in? Or is it, or does creativity come about as you kind of schedule, okay, I'm going to work right now, for this part of a segment of time, and that's creativity arises in that moment? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Well, back to the chunks, they come anytime, and it's like a window opening. If I don't catch it as it comes in the window, if I don't write something down right there, I lose it. The window closes. And let's see. I do not set times for writing. I like to write in the morning, but I usually don't. Afternoon and evening tend to be my better times. And yet I still don't schedule anything. With the almanac, I should say, the Wanaskan almanac, I have to sometimes schedule, because a poem a week is not always an easy thing to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they call it a heroic couplet, because it's not easy to do, Catherine.
Oh, there you go, Zach.
Well, and Catherine, can I just say, I completely agree. When things come to you, if you don't write them down, they are gone. And it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always working on, how do you capture that? If you're in a place where you don't have access to a pen and paper, can you tape it on your phone? What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a pen and paper person, so I'm constantly carrying on a little notebook and a pen. I have one right here. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. They talk about the muses and how they inspire artists. Well, I think they're kind of fickle, because they open that window and they go, you're not interested? Bye. We're taking this one back.
Yeah, and you don't take advantage of it, and then it's gone, and then you want it so much and you can't find it. So.
That's right.
Catherine, do you have a poem ready that
Oh,
you
sure.
would like to share with us?
I sure do. Just get my glasses on. This one is called Bewildered. I dreamed a bear last night. I want to go home, she said, her midnight pelt against blackest light. Am I here? She asked, head low, swaying side to side, tired as darkness as she passed. The bear held a thought-free wish, spoken only in the sanctity of dreams, where truth is clear, and as it seems. The wayfinding bear, terribly lost, did not conceive of that, nor ken the cost. Her ungrounded locus shifted and begot cessation. Her shaded homing beacon beamed no location. Her ancient instinct seized, turned unfamiliar, like staring into a pond through a silver mirror, and desolation ever heaving nearer. Am I here? She asked again, as crackling conviction emerged. She was beyond wretchedness, inside a shadowy lacuna of misery, and no way to express. Ruptured certainty spattered out the truth. She had no others of her kind. They too were lost far from their nation. Only hissing waste and want with blind causation. Her body knew return was not in her constellation. I found the valor to ask her, can you find it? As before, her singularity, one note, I want to go home, was all she said. But her body spoke, draped in fire-seasoned smoke, that showed the verity in her bones, always, always coming home. You don't have to say anything. I'm getting tears here just reading it.
Thank you for that.
No, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe it's time to move on to Zach for a while. What do you think?
You said we don't have to say anything, but can I say something?
Of course.
I got to see one bear while I was still up in Minnesota, and it was running across the highway, and I didn't get a very good look at it, but the poem made me think of how, it's been so dry up there and they can't get any berries. They're going to the fields looking for things to eat, going into town, and the smoke enshrouded fur that you mentioned, or spoke to, just kind of, you don't think of anything being more fearsome than a bear. Like if I walked up on a bear, I wouldn't want to do that. But to think that, these huge, magnificent creatures are having a difficult time, it's, it really puts into perspective that, the environment has a lot to say and isn't as strong at times as it appears.
Don't get me on that, or we'll be talking about the environment for the rest of the show. But we see it here in the forest. The birds are disappearing. The monarch butterflies that used to go through are practically gone. Plants that used to grow aren't here, and so on and so on. You really see it when you live in the forest.
I bet.
Well, I'm anxious to hear from Zach for a while anyway.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of take over. So one of those creatures that's missing from the forest, he just left from my lap. He's over there running around. It's me and two cats here in this hotel room. I'm currently in a state of transition. Just moved from Minnesota, where I did all of the work that's currently displayed in the gallery at Northland Community and Technical College. It's all local to Minnesota, and I've since transitioned out of Minnesota back to my native Illinois. And I haven't actually gotten the chance to make any art yet since mid-July, really, because I've just been busy, and I've wanted to move to the new landscape. I didn't want to kind of have one foot in and one foot out, making art that I'm, isn't where I'm at or what I'm, feeling at the moment. But as the title of the exhibit display says, it's elemental. Everything that I hoped to convey and show with my work. The 30 drawings that I did from October of 2020 to this past July, they all hope to represent or articulate in some way the natural environment, specifically the rocks. There are a few drawings without rocks, which are my passion. However, there are some of those animals in the gallery. But what I hope to convey was, the fragility of the natural environment, how it got to be that way, and also to kind of put some questions in people's heads as you go through the gallery. If you visited or if you plan on doing so, I've attached writing to the art that's on display, kind of talking about how it formed or what made it look the way that it does, some sort of informational tidbit to go along with what I hope to capture. And for me, my art has come a long way from when I started a little under 3 years ago. It's mainly been a vehicle for me to learn more about the environment that I study, and has been a way in which I can kind of get around or skirt the minute details of significant figures in calculations and making spreadsheets and all sorts of calculations. It's really wasn't what I found I was good at. I found I was good at maybe communicating concepts better to some people, or trying to represent them visually, which is what I hope to stick to. One thing that I wanted to say during this StreamYard interview deal was that my art that I produce is just that, it's art. I'll even go so far as to say landscape art with some wildlife. I studied geology in college, but it's not science that I do. Science is empirical. There's room for error, but not very much, especially when it's peer reviewed and edited. And while I do take peer review and criticism on my art, I've adjusted interpretations and titles on what I call things, or how I see it. I have adjusted those when I've been confronted with people telling me, hey, that's not what it is, let's talk about it, which is what I really like, is the conversation on not just the art and how I've executed it, but what it's there and what it's representing. All science should have a hypothesis or be, clear-cut hard science. And while I could say, oh, this is qualitative science, it's art. And for a long time, I wanted to say, oh, it's science. It is. But I've come around to thinking that it's not. It's a different type of work than what people are doing on the forefront of their scientific fields. And we're hopefully achieving the same goal at different points in communicating the issues and discussing those with people. So it's landscape art. It's not anything more or anything less. But yeah, if you had any questions, I wrote, like I said, a little bit about each piece. There's more information in the gallery about myself.
I'd love to hear some of the things that you wrote. Maybe you can describe what you created and then read to us a little bit?
I don't actually have the writing word for word in front of me. However, Catherine, but what I can tell you and elaborate on is that I started with sort of the backbone of the area of Minnesota, which is the underlying bedrock, which is billions of years old. I kind of lightly touched on its age and what type of rock it is. It's mainly metamorphic and igneous rock. Some of the oldest on the continent, really, of North America. And from there, I kind of tried to work uh, to the south and the west, and I went into such ideas or elements of the environment of northwestern Minnesota, as talking about the different vegetative habitats where the prairie parkland meets the Laurentian forest of the east, kind of by the lakes, and additionally talked about the glacial features of the area. It's so flat up there, especially to the north and west, because of Lake Agassiz. Um, all of the calm, deep areas of the lake when it existed 12,000 years ago or so, those all settled out and were really fine lake bottoms. And the kind of the hillier areas, sort of down by you, Catherine, Bemis Hill Way and whatnot, you'll see a lot of sandy ridges, and those
Yeah,
are
apparently that's why they call it island, Beltrami Island, because it's sandy. Is that
yeah,
right?
it's one of the areas that have first emerged out of the receding lake. It probably would have been from what I have understood during my time there, it's would have been one of the areas that emerged of higher elevation as the lake receded, and the island. Um, I'm not actually sure on the dimensions of the island, but I do know that the furthest extent in that direction is one of the first beach ridges. So that would have been the furthest extent of Lake Agassiz over in your neck of the woods.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's
Um,
interesting. Zach, I do have all of your, I've have photographs of all of your artwork and what you wrote. I can read something if you'd like.
sure.
So the one I came across were the killdeer eggs.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Do you want me to read that?
Yeah, if you'd like, yeah.
Okay. So Zach had two images. One of this amazing. Um, it just looks like a bunch of rocks, and but when you look closer, it's like, wait, those rocks, there's some eggs in there, and so these are killdeer eggs. So Zach had seen these, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but from what I remember, he had seen these and taken photographs, and then the next day or soon after, they had hatched, and he had also had a photo of these baby killdeers, and just how they're so camouflaged. So when I first saw these, I didn't even see the eggs or the baby killdeers. So that's how well they were. Zach, you did a really good job of camouflaging your artwork. The eggs and the killdeers, because I didn't even see them at first. So I'll read both of these. This is the first one with just the eggs. And it says this. I got to take my glasses off here. The title is "The Difference a Day Can Make, the Before." This is chalk pastel. A killdeer nest situated in a shallow depression of a rock bed in the shade of a tree, hoping to camouflage 4 eggs against predators. The male-female pair try to distract anything or anyone that gets close by moving away and pretending to be an injured, easy target. The next image are the eggs have hatched. The killdeer are there, just sitting there very still. The title is The Difference a Day Can Make, the After. A killdeer nest with 4 hatchlings. They would vacate the nest within another day.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
a little bit about that those two together. I can't actually take credit for spying them first. A colleague at work had actually pointed them out to me and was the one who informed me and taught me about the killdeer and how they will use rock beds to kind of hide their eggs from predators who are looking for an easy meal, and was the one who actually dragged me out of the office to go examine it and look a little bit further and actually find the nest. While we got close and you know the parents, the mom and dad bird, I guess, they would walk away sometimes into the street, and they would just flop around with like pretending they had a broken wing, in order to, I guess they thought we were foxes looking for a meal or something. But that was something that I knew I had to capture, because it was, while it was a little moment and it was just fleeting over the course of 24 hours, while they hatched and then were gone, the day after they hatched. It really kind of put into perspective that things move quickly at times, and then also not at all, when in terms of talking about the environment. And it really just brightened my day. I've been sitting in the office probably for 30 hours that week at that point, and to go out and see that, it really really, you learn something and you see something so beautiful that it kind of changes your perspective.
Oh, I hear you, Zach. Because of the drought this year, our mushrooms in the forest haven't come up, but we've had some rain recently, and here and there now they're poking their little heads up. But you have to really look to see these things, because they're all under the tree limbs and in the grasses, but they kind of make themselves known with their colors. And there was a really big one, and it's really exciting to see these things happen, especially when they always happen and then suddenly there's a year where they don't. Oh, that was beautiful. I can just picture it. Sorry, that's a little bit of a pun there. I can picture it.
Yeah. The mushrooms, there are actually a few mushrooms in the gallery down at Thief River. On one of the pieces, residue reclamation and revival, kind of talking about the peat soils in the area and how they have a high organic matter or high organic content, and due to the short growing season, which may be likely to change depending on how warm it stays and the years to come, there's a lot of material that doesn't have the opportunity to decompose, and so it kind of just all piles up on top of each other.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to hunt or dig for those mushrooms. Going out and finding some fresh ones sounds nice.
Well, you got to be careful though.
Yeah, you don't want to eat anything poisonous.
No, and there's some pretty bad ones. They're great to look at, but not to eat.
Yes.
I made a couple of mistakes with that the first year or two that we were up here. Nothing serious, but a little tummy ache.
No.
Wow.
Can we hear another one?
Yeah, I can find another one. Zach, while I'm looking for another one, I was really intrigued by what you were saying about, you as a geologist, and you're realizing your artwork is not, it's not like scientific illustration or image for some kind of scientific book or college curriculum. It sounded like you were saying you kind of realize that, and your work, while it's informed by your interest in geology and your studies, it's really art. So first of all, is that correct? And then second of all, what is that? Is that freeing? Is that, I mean, what's that like for you to just think, okay, this informs my artwork, but it doesn't have to be spot on, exactly scientifically based? I mean, I'm not sure if I'm even explaining this right, or if I'm, if I'm on target on this, but do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I can try and elaborate a little bit more. So while it's informed with information from others, that's the actual science that I take my knowledge from, and where I get a lot of my interpretations. If I'm just out there just drawing a rock because it's a pretty rock, then that's all it is a drawing of a pretty rock. But if I go out and sit on a riverbank and can read some sort of scholarly source article that's going to tell me what that rock is, where it formed, how old it is, then I'm a little bit more aware as I'm sitting there. And that's not any sort of new, from my perspective, my point of view, that's not really any sort of new creation or thought on my part. It's merely a testament to the work that others have done, I suppose. I guess with my art, these drawings, they're not ever gonna help anybody build a structure that's gonna, it's not gonna ever build levees or keep floodwater out. Excuse you. It's not gonna ever fix plastic waste and overconsumption. Whereas the people that are actually out there, looking at methods for carbon sequestration or new biodegradable plastics and running the actual tests and looking at those things and how they change, those are the people that are doing better work for the environment, I would think. While I can communicate, my perspective and my interpretation of other people's interpretation, it's not, there's room for error. And I'll be the first person to admit that. There's room for error. But to say that it's not something that's extremely high stakes art. So maybe that's, maybe it is freeing, like you asked. I don't know if I'm scared of a challenge of trying to make some discovery, or find some end all be all cure for the world's woes. But I think going out and just enjoying it and knowing that it hasn't always been the way that it is helpful for when it's not so great. When things aren't going well, if you can look outside and realize that things have not always been the way that they are, then it's quite easy to look forward and realize that things will not always be the way that they are, which is about as close to an if-then hypothesis statement that I can get, which is why I don't really consider it science, even though it is geologically inspired or supported or aided in the interpretations.
Yeah.
Zach, I wouldn't. What your work does is it tells a story, and it tells a story for the environment, and it makes changes in a different way. It speaks to us personally, and so it's your work is doing a lot for the environment. It's just doing it in a different way.
I try to have that attitude about it. I do. And it's been, and the council is a great format, or the gallery and the council have been, I guess, instrumental in allowing me to do that and communicate with people and convey what I want to. And so I'm extremely grateful, and I can't wait to get back outdoors and continue doing it.
Well, it reminds me of, as far as impact and making change and so forth, it reminds me of something my teacher that I mentioned earlier told me when I was still on the martial arts mat and teaching. And he said, if nobody comes, you still teach the class because it will have good energy for the world. So when I think, especially poets, right? Who reads poets anymore? A few people here and there. Are they going to make a difference? Maybe. If I touch one person and they take action that I can't take for certain reasons, and they make changes for the planet, for the people, for the sentient beings that we live, hey, I've done a great job. I may never know it. I may never know that happened. So I think let's not cut ourselves too short on that, on the impact we might have. One person can do a lot.
They can. And continuing on with that, Catherine, one person can do a tremendous deal. Before we started talking, you were talking about driving an hour and a half. That's one way, right?
That's right.
One way to recycle cardboard and other materials.
Yep.
And a person can make a tremendous deal. That's cardboard and glass is not going to end up outdoors where it's not supposed to be, and so it's truly commendable. And
thank you. Well, we try to have a small footprint here too. We don't use, we do heat with wood, but it's all deadfall. We don't chop trees down. They're already down when we take them.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't, as you're talking, Zach and Catherine, I think about, there's work we can do that complements our minds and knowledge and how to do things and our linear way of seeing things, or from past to future, and we do this and then we do this and this is the best way and then we go here. And artwork to me it's much different than that. It's not linear. It doesn't really work with our minds. It goes much deeper, and it's very inspiring, and it connects at a much deeper level. And so, when you were talking, Zach, that's what I'm thinking when your artwork is in some ways inspired, or it takes information from your studies and your knowledge, but then it just kind of takes on a life of its own, and that's what it is. And I think it can be very inspiring to people, and very helpful on a much deeper level than the mind, from knowing certain things or whatever, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's very much about what we feel. And Catherine touched on this, on why she makes a poetry and art, and it's because it's how it's evoked out of her, and it's what makes her feel the most, from what I understand. And
yes,
that's why I do it, and it's because it helps me feel things. And
I can't not do it.
Yeah,
you might as well cut off both hands, because that's how bad it would be if I couldn't write.
Yeah. And you talked about how the words just come through the window or, out of the great unknown whenever you're out walking with the dogs. And um, it being outside helps, but you could be anywhere and the great unknown is right there around you. And it's for a lot of artists, it's a way to make sense and to just be okay at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And the added bonus is that a lot of time it goes further than being okay, and it makes you feel great a lot of the time.
Yep. I agree totally.
Well, and Catherine, earlier you were talking about right brain, and I mean, I think this exhibit is really a great balance between right brain and left brain. There's a lot of information and facts, and coupled with art. So it's just it's a great balance to me.
Agreed. Want to hear one more before we're done?
Yeah, I've got, Catherine, do you have another poem?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of them that I believe is in the exhibit. Raven Laughing. 1 second. There we go. Raven Laughing. Gloss black wings, scissor slice harsh air, winter sun shimmers, purpling feathers, wing on wing, a suchness, leaving tiny vapor trail of raven breathing. In one long glide, he skims forest, river, fields that take me stumbling hours to cross. And he just cocks his black maned head, looks at me, a puffed pink lump, squinting up at Raven laughing. Contrail crystals stream off his wingtips, hooked black bladed beak slits and severed space up there, while I stand aground, listening for what I'm sure I hear in one cackle, a raven laugh. Aerobatics do not stop, and he's too busy being to notice me or hoot. He just squawks at his own dark brilliance and at my lurching run. So easy he fits his raven skin. No worry etches his black eye. Effortless he shapes his raven wings against evermore sky. And and I gulp, tear up, and wish my breath would sit sheathed in bone and flesh so well as this glossy feathered one gliding traceless winds, while all I can do is cry out to this splendid raven, leaving with no sound. Thank you. I'd like to ask Kristen and Trey whether the gallery and everything else that has gone around it, if you're happy with how it came out.
I mean, I can speak first. I'm very happy with it. I think that's just beautiful, and and you never know how it's going to turn out. And so this gallery, this elemental gallery, we've got very distinct. You've got Zack, your work, which is very colorful and vibrant, and this all these landscape images, this beautiful chalk pastel framed in this kind of barn wood. And then we've got this black and white, these words, just some illustration, but mostly words, poetry, some writing. And I think it fits together so well. I'm very happy how it's just kind of how it just came about.
Good to hear.
Yeah, and I would echo that. You don't know how it's going to turn out. Um, and there aren't a lot of opportunities for writers in an exhibit.
For sure.
So this worked out well, I think.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's never happened. Nothing like this has ever happened to me as a writer.
Well, and I'd say we're open to other ideas to highlight and feature writers in our exhibits. So
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So before we're getting close to our end, Zack and Catherine, if people want to know more about you, about your artwork, how can they find out about you? How can they be in touch or know more about your art?
Go ahead, Zack.
If people would like to know more or see more art that is not necessarily the 30 pieces that are hanging at Northland, then they can reach out to me either with my information's in the gallery, or they can find me on Instagram or through or email. I imagine we could attach that information with the almanac link,
Yeah.
the UNESCO almanac link. So that could be out there. And I guess
what is your Instagram, Zack? Because Kim Ruba was nice enough to give us a link for the UNESCO.
I believe it's at the @ ZJ Rowatt, my last name, ROWATT. And I suppose one other thing that I did want to say about the art that's in the gallery currently is it is for sale. And when I say that it is for sale, what I have marked on there is for some of it is for sale. When people have been reaching out to me in order to purchase some of the work, I've been telling them that because it's grant funded and I've had so much help from all of the great people up in Roseau, that instead of paying me directly just to go stuff snickerdoodles down my face and eat food that I don't need to eat and things like that, that what they can do is that they can send me a receipt, either through an image or the actual receipt, for a charitable donation to an organization of their choice, which I thought would be better than just telling people that it's going to go to some X, Y, and Z charity in case they weren't aligned with that organization's interests. So if people are interested, that is what will be going. Any funds generated will be going towards wherever they want it to go, in order to give back to the place that gave me a lot. And so Catherine said it, but to both Trey and Kristen, I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me. And words, an hour is really not enough to kind of tell you how I feel about having my work up there. And thank you.
Yeah.
I'll echo that too. Thank you so much. Means a lot to a poet, I'll tell you. We don't get a whole lot of recognition, I guess. Acknowledgement would be a better word. As far as
Catherine?
Yeah. I actually prefer phone calls, but email is fine too. I'm not on any of the social media. Okay. That's a long story. My phone number is ready. You ready for the phone number?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
218-425-3107.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and then as far as Zack, I just wanted to ask you real quick, as far as commissions, would you be willing to take commissions? You're not in Minnesota anymore. Now you're in Illinois. So give us like a little summary of what's happening with you.
Yeah, I just started a new job down here in Southern Illinois, my native Illinois, about 3.5 hours from home. And if people want a piece of art that's individualized towards them, or an image that they've seen or captured or experience that they've had, and they'd like me to take a look at it, see what I can do, then I'm more than happy to do that. I'm always looking to try and new formats on sizes of paper. I typically work in a 9x12, and that can kind of branching out is nice at times. But I have done a few black and white for folks. So if people have things that they think might look good on their wall, then I'd appreciate the compliment.
Great.
And Kristen, I sent you my information in the chat there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I did include your Instagram, and I guess I didn't give your email, but that is on our website, I think, with your.
There's a dot in between the Z and the J, or the Z, J, and the J and the R, I should say.
I searched Instagram and I found it, so when I put those in. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but you're right, there is a dot in between there.
I don't think there's a bunch of other Zack Roats out there, so it should pop up.
Came right up for me. So, and I just followed you. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to both of you for being on StreamYard and sharing about yourselves. Thanks for being part of the exhibit. We really appreciate both of you, as well as all of our artists, regional artists that are brave enough to contribute and be, part of galleries. So thanks for sharing.
No, you're so welcome. I'm honored.
Of course. Yes, it's a tremendous honor.
Yeah, anything we can do to highlight you, please let us know. And Trey, do you want to give information about the exhibit again, just to?
Yeah. So the exhibit. So Zack and Catherine are both in this exhibit. It's called Elemental. Air, water, fire, earth, and space. And I always have to count on my fingers to make sure I've got them all. And so, plus other poets and illustrators are also in the exhibit. But so this is at Northland Community and Technical College in Thief River Falls. It's been we started about a month ago, and it goes until September 27th. So you've got about a month to go see it. It's also, we have a virtual tour on our website that Kristen, puts together these virtual tours that are just awesome. So if you live in Hawaii, you can be part of the exhibit. You can watch it. You can
fly back to Minnesota just in time for the snow. In order to it won't be running that long, I suppose.
Well, you never know what's going to happen in the end of September in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the exhibit. It's free. It's in the Northland Community Technical College. So it's during college hours, which are typically Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Now that colleges classes have started up again, that's the typical hours. But you can always double check with the college. But it's free, open to the public. Walk in, take a look, sign the guest book. Just take your time. This is an exhibit you want to have a little bit of extra time for because, not only just the visual art, but then you've got all of this poetry and writing. You just want to take your time and read, take it all in. And so you'll want to have a little bit of time when you go to this exhibit. But it's a great exhibit. I encourage everyone to go to it. That's where we're at. And then we'll start a new exhibit in October 1st. We'll start a new exhibit. So what's
that one?
So that one is with a sculpture artist named Brandon LaPlante. And so he's working on this theme of balance. And he's going to have all of this sculpture work around the theme of balance, male, female, yin and yang. So all of this balance, and so this will be quite interesting.
Is it what's he sculpt with? Sorry for past time. I'm curious now. What is he? Is it like
Oh no,
sculpt?
he uses a lot of reclaimed wood, reclaimed material, a stone, a lot of big objects, and so that kind of makes it even more intriguing with balance.
Okay.
So that's just a little bit about it. And also another note, we've wanted to do receptions because of COVID. We've been a little trying to be cautious about, all these in-person receptions. So we probably will not be having any kind of reception with Elemental. And we'll see with Brandon's exhibit how things kind of pan out with COVID and how things are going. But we encourage everyone, please, if you're in the area, take a look at the exhibit, and if you're not in the area, go online and take the virtual tour.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Yeah, take care.
You too.